Right now, I want to welcome to the program the Legislative Affairs Director for the Virginia Shooting Sports Association, Mr. Dave Adams, joins us. Dave, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Kim.
All right. Well, listen, when we booked you, we were planning on talking about a busy day in the Senate Courts of Justice Committee, and I do want to talk about that. But shortly before we went on the air this afternoon, Washington Post, Jenna Portnoy, with the story that some sort of agreement has been reached to restore reciprocity with most of these states that lost reciprocity with Virginia by the actions of Attorney General Mark Herring. This compromise reached between Republicans and Governor Terry McAuliffe. What do you know about this, Dave?
Our lobbyist mentioned it to me yesterday that he had a conversation with a patriot of one of the bills that was put in to restore reciprocity, that there was a possible deal in the works. At the time, he asked that we just keep that under wraps because we didn't have any details. But now, according to that Washington Post poll, it looks like we'll get the hearing order completely overturned, and in exchange, McAuliffe gets some minor concessions. But when you look at the list of things that the Post mentions, it's not a whole lot. I mean, I think basically what happened, and this was mentioned by another analysis I saw on it after the article came out, was that I think Herring and McAuliffe realized that they had a huge political miscalculation in the response they were going to get on what Herring did, and this was a state-saving way of trying to deal with that miscalculation.
You know, that seems about right to me, Dave. Again, we've talked with a couple of lawmakers in Virginia since the Attorney General made his announcement. And I can tell you, people who are, you know, unfortunately for us, they're gun owners, but they're not necessarily politically active. They were politically active on this. They were contacting their representatives, and they were saying, you know, we're really bothered by this. What can we do about this? I think this did become a much bigger political issue than the governor or the attorney general thought it would be, and maybe they that comes from their lack of understanding or knowledge about Virginia gun owners and concealed carry holders. I am curious, does this what does this do for the legislation, Dave, that would take the right to carry, the authority to issue these reciprocity agreements out of the hands of the attorney general? Is that still live legislation for this session, you think?
Well, they did report Senate Bill 610 last night. They rolled several bills into that. Senate Bill 610 is sponsored by Senator Bryce Reeves out of the Fredericksburg area. That seemed to be the one that most of the legislators were leaning toward. They also reported out Senate Bill 713, which is a hanger bill, which actually creates a legislative commission. They reported that out of committee and re-referred that to finance because it may have a fiscal impact in setting up a commission and having to staff that commission. I've not heard anything about not moving those bills forward still. And it's possible that this deal that was announced in the Post is part of 610, that in return for passing and signing that bill, that the couple of other things that were mentioned, such as legislation that would keep someone whose Virginia concealed carry permit who had it revoked from being able to get a out-of-state permit being honored. That could be something that's dropped as emergency legislation since it's now past the date to introduce legislation, and that would make its way to the governor's desk. So we're still trying to get all the details on how all this is going to work.
Okay, and I do understand that this is sort of a breaking news, and I think until we likely see that legislation, we probably won't know all of the details here. In the meantime, we do still have permitless carry in the state Senate. It was passed over for a vote yesterday, right?
Yes, the patron asked to go by for the day, and he did the same thing today just before your call came in.
Okay, so we won't get a vote today on permitless carry in Virginia State Senate. It was a busy day for the Senate Courts of Justice Committee yesterday, and folks who are Virginia gun owners, by the way, you really should be following the Virginia Shooting Sports Association on Twitter. You guys were tweeting out the status of every bill throughout the afternoon. It was great to see, and into the evening as well, Dave. So if that was you or someone else with the VSSA, congratulations, because you did fantastic work.
Oh, well, thanks. It was a cooperative effort between our lobbyist and myself. I get the information and I tweet it out.
So what can you tell us? What were some of the big bills that did pass out of the Senate Courts of Justice Committee? What were some of the big bills that failed yesterday?
Well, the important bills that passed out, as I mentioned earlier, were the reciprocity bills, Senate Bill 610, which heads to the floor of the Senate, and Senate Bill 713, I believe, which is Senator Hanger's bill that's gone to finance, so it still has to be approved by finance before it can go to the floor. But we do have a mechanism that's now winding its way through. The important anti-gun bills that were disposed of, they disposed of a reinstitution of handgun rationing, 1 gun a month. They got rid of several so-called universal background check bills. They got rid of a couple of bills having to do with someone who has a protective order and would not allow you to be able to own a firearm. I think right now the law says you can't purchase one, but if you have one in your possession. So there's some of those bills that is the usual Bloomberg bills that have come out from the domestic violence type of things. And, you know, we saw several bills that were in for universal background checks. It was a very long committee meeting. They were taking up a lot of bills other than gun bills. It went in past 9 o'clock last night, and they started at about 2 yesterday. And also bills that had to do with disqualifying people from concealed handgun permits if they had ever been treated for mental health or substance abuse. So we had a good night in Senate courts, and most of the bad bills that had been introduced are now gone.
Oh, that is very good news to hear, Dave. I appreciate you coming on the program. And again, sounds like we're in for another busy couple of days here in Richmond.
We're in for a busy night over in Militia and Police Subcommittee number 1. They're pretty much taking up the same type of bills that the Senate Courts of Justice did last night. That committee meeting starts at 4 o'clock today, so we'll be tweeting into the evening tonight as well.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on the program, and as you learn more details about this agreement regarding reciprocity, let us know, will you?
We sure will. Thanks a lot, Cam.
All right. Thank you. Dave Adams, Legislative Affairs Director with the Virginia Shooting Sports Association.